In just a few minutes, on the 30 after the hour, we're going to be talking with Senator Justin Wayne. I wanted to get on a little bit sooner to show the clip of Senator Justin Wayne's opening remarks on the floor. He was talking about LB364 in Nebraska. He was once a skeptic of school choice, believed in it in his heart, but not necessarily very publicly. And just this past Wednesday, Senator Justin Wayne talked to the Nebraska Legislature about why he changed his decision and why he was supporting the creation of a tax credit scholarship for low-income students in the state of Nebraska. Unfortunately, the bill did not pass, and Senator Justin Wayne, his his video has gone viral on Twitter, on Facebook, on the platforms. And so I just wanted to show it right before we kick off this interview with Senator Justin Wayne. So enjoy, guys.
But unfortunately, I have to go back to court for a client and then come back down here. But I came down here this morning because I've been dealing with education since 2008, and probably prior to that when I was working with kids, and that's when I ran for the learning community. Since then, I've been dealing with it in an elected official capacity. And so I want to frame this conversation differently, and I hope truly on both sides of the fence, whether you consider yourself an ally or not, listen to these words I'm saying, because I'm coming from a different perspective where I was against this bill for many years. But there's some fundamental things that have changed over the last course of the year that made me say, well, why not? First, every child should have access to a high quality education, not by chance, not by privilege, but by right. The fact of the matter is, it's right now a chance that you get to go to a good school depending upon where you live. Sometimes it's often a privilege that you get to go to a good school in Nebraska, but the fact of the matter is it should be by right. Over a century ago, Frederick Douglass, and then later quoted by Malcolm X, said that education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today. Well, when you look at the achievement gap in the communities in East Omaha, we're not doing a very good job of preparing Black people for tomorrow's world. And in fact, over the last 12 years, that gap has grown. And there could be never more truth to the statement that I just read when today you think about how our kids are competing, not just in Nebraska, but globally with China, with Russia, with Italy. A good education is the key to the American promise. And what that means is that if you work hard and you get a good education, you can be successful in America. But a key element of that is a good education. And we are failing so many people. I am a proud Omaha Public School product. I went to Hartman Elementary, King Science Center, Northwest High School, and what I learned in that environment is I was blessed to have mentors and people who took me aside to make sure I was successful. Elmer Crumley, Arvin Frazier, Judge Lowe. They stood with me to get me through. But I also learned that we have a dual education system and that many kids are often left behind. And the fact of the matter today, many of the kids that I represent are still getting Jim Crow math and back of the bus science. And that is a fundamental problem for me. We talk about many of the people who will speak up against this bill. I have seen quotes on Martin Luther King that says, a right delayed is a right denied. Well, damn it, this is a right being delayed every year for my community. So don't quote that when it's convenient. Be an ally when it's not. We shouldn't criticize parents for wanting something better than their school they're stuck in. We shouldn't criticize communities saying, I want a choice. But let me tell you about the choice in my school district. If I opt out to another school, And I have a bill on it, LB555, 550. If I opt out to Millard, and I want to leave Millard because as I've been there for 6 years, or my child's been there for 6 years, the only school district I get to go back is my home school in my neighborhood. That is statute. There's no real choice, there's one choice. You get to opt out once, and if that doesn't work out, you got to go back to your neighborhood school district. That is law. I've tried to up that for the last 2 years to unlimited or to 5. And then I get the other side of the argument. Well, now we're giving too much choice. Parents don't know. We can't have a kid leave a school district every year. Well, if a kid is transferring every year, there's a bigger problem that needs to be addressed in that family household. So we have this false sense of choice. It's only one choice. And then if you don't like that choice, you got to go back to the same school district you were trying to leave. While public school system continues to operate in a way that neglects and outright harms the education of Black children, what's amazing is we are the same people who are standing up to block the choice that parents want. Just a choice. I believe that it's unfair, unjust, and just flat out wrong to not give parents a choice. So let me tell you about a choice that happened at Burke High School last year. When they decided to not have fall football because of COVID, over 30% of the football varsity players left, picked up, and moved to Bennington, Westside, or Millard so they can get into their school districts so those kids can play a sport. You know what happened at North High School? They stayed. Many kids lost scholarships. You know what happened at Northwest? They stayed. Many kids lost opportunities for scholarships. Choice is about privilege having the dollars to make that choice. This bill is disrupting the system enough to say, let's give free and low-income students and their parents a choice to go to a different school. Why is that bad? I have no idea. I've said before over and over, we have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and this is one of those moments. There are very few people on this floor who I think have the ability to stand up in good conscience and say they are against all tax credits. Very few. And I will credit Megan Hunt, Senator Hunt. She's been one of those people. 1107, Senator Kavanaugh, Senator Hunt, we're against it all the way through. Outside of that, if we spend $100 and something million on corporations, and we can't spend $5 million on people, then we're saying we're putting profits over people as a body. Because this bill is about the kids. All the other tax credits that I've seen have been about the profits. So when we sit here and have this debate, and I'll be listening to it while I'm in court too, it shouldn't take that long as I'm driving back. This is that defining moment where I'm going to start calling out people for not being consistent when it comes to choices that my parents are asking for, at least the option. And you know what? They may not. They may not like a private school. They may agree that it might have.
In just a few minutes, we'll be going live with Senator Justin Wayne. I'm going to go back to his floor debate opening speech in just a minute. But I wanted to let you know that we're going live with him in 30 after the hour. And I just can't wait to hear what he has to say, because he was once a skeptic of school choice. And now he's out of the closet proponent. And his opening speech on the floor about LB364, although it did not pass, was remarkable. So keep listening.
Too much of Christianity or too much of this and go back to public school. But what I do know is in Senator Terrell McKinney's district, there's a school by Nelson Mandela that filled up and had a waiting list before it even opened. So I know parents are asking for something. They're asking for something because what we're doing right now is not working. And I'm not saying this is the silver lining, this is the magic bullet that's going to fundamentally change the education in North and South Omaha, or it's going to change the education in rural Nebraska. But what we're doing is not working. We are not making the changes that need to happen to make sure kids are being educated. And if it's about dollars, Because I sat on a conference call when OPS said they don't need any more money. They have more money than they know what to do with this year. So if it's about dollars, then in the next 2 years, the achievement gap should be gone. Because they have more money now than they know what to do with. It's not about that. Suspending 800 kindergartners has nothing to do with dollars. That is a culture. That's why over 4 years, I don't know, we keep going back and forth, not sure. But at the end of the day, we've passed multiple hundreds of millions of tax credits for corporations. But when it comes to scholarships that mainly benefit kids that look like me, we're gonna oppose it. And then you're gonna stand here and say you're an ally when it comes to police brutality. That's the same system, it's the same government over the history. There's been 2 systematic governments that our people have relied on that has pushed us back: police and education system. So you can't talk about one and not talk about the other. I literally drove home last night, drove back down here because I have to leave by 10 o'clock because we have to change how this conversation goes in this body. We need to stop using excuses as we are taking money away from education, but we are okay with taking money away for education for profits. We have to stop saying that everything's fine, let's just wait a little bit longer. I've been elected for a whole generation who walked from kindergarten through 12th grade and nothing's changed. And we want to wait longer? It's time to start upsetting the apple cart to create change. And although this is a very, very small pebble being thrown in this big stone, it's a start. And it's a start to empower the parents and the kids in my community to make that choice, a real choice. That's why I came down here. And that's why I'm gonna put another 200 miles on my car today, driving back and forth.
You've exhausted your 10 minutes, but you're next in the queue.
Thank you. So I want to just end briefly with something real simple. We talk a lot about the American dream, but we know when kids don't have the right education, they go into the American prison system. We know study after study shows that prison systems are often built off of 3rd and 4th grade reading scores. That's fact. That's how they project what's gonna happen, at least they did for the last 80 years. So rather than trying to keep parents and students in bad schools, let's do a dual approach. Let's fix the system, but let's also give people choice. With so many schools not living up to what I consider the end of our bargain for the American dream, we have obviously more work to do. Nobody's denying that. But let's not get into these, I almost cussed on the mic, BS arguments about tax credits taken away from education funding. When I heard nobody say that for 2 years about corporate tax credits. Let's not talk about rich people being able to have a tax write-off, because that's not my concern. My concern are the poor kids being able to go to school. Let's have that conversation. But don't stand up and say it's about this, this, and this when we haven't been consistent on anything else. Don't stand up and say you're an ally for the cause, but you won't even give the people in my community an option, a $5 million option, when we spend hundreds of millions of dollars every year in property tax relief and tax credits. So I'll be watching, but I hope we have a better, I appreciate Senator Hunt's amendment. It's working towards to make the bill better. I just don't want this to deteriorate into what I've seen before on this floor with false information and denial of a right that's been denied for too long in my community. Thank you, Mr. President, and I'll withdraw that motion.
Motion.
We are about to go live in a few minutes, just a few minutes, with Senator Justin Wayne, who was once a skeptic for school choice and is now a proud out of the closet, I don't know what you call it, advocate for school choice. He's recently gone viral online talking about his newfound public affection for creating more opportunities for students. And on Wednesday, there was a bill proposed, LB364, to create a tax credit scholarship program for students to go to a private school on a scholarship. Tax credit scholarship means that a business or an individual will get a credit on their taxes if they owe taxes if they donate that to a scholarship granting organization. Currently, Nebraska has no programs that serve students who want to go to a school other than their zoned district school. And so that program would have been the first ever. In just a few minutes, we'll be going live. Sit tight.
I don't know what Sam's doing, man. We can move blankets this weekend, probably. Depending on if he got his kids or not. We go
Hello?
Yes, hi, my name is
Okay.
Denisha Mary. How you doing, Senator Justin Wayne?
Doing how about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good, This is Black Minds Matter. We are a platform that promotes education justice, education freedom for students in this country. And our motto is our essence and our being deserve life. So those who are waving up the flag saying that our bodies need justice, we're also saying that our minds need justice as well. And every kid, regardless of their income level, regardless of where they live, deserve to be in an environment that caters to their needs. And I like to add, because I got my background in social work, that kids should not experience trauma in school. They should not be in a learning environment where they're experiencing trauma at no level. And so Senator Justin Wayne out of Nebraska, day before yesterday, on the floor. I mean, you had the most talking time it seemed. I was looking at the entire debate on LB364, which would have created the first ever scholarship program in the state of Nebraska. And so, yes, I'll just kick it off to learn a little bit more about you. What's your background in education, and what's your background in education?
Sorry.
And yeah, no problem. Hey, we're live and this is real. So yeah, we know that it's not.
It's all right.
So what? Yeah, tell me a little bit about your
It's a holiday in Nebraska. It's Friday. It's a holiday in Nebraska. But my background in education started really when I was young. I just always thought education is, I thought it was Malcolm X who said education is the passport to the future, and though it belongs to those, tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today. So that kind of always stuck with me, and that started like in 6th grade when the movie Malcolm X came out. So that dates you how old I am. But then I ran for school board when I was in law school and lost. Then I started working, and I ran for what's called the Learning Community, which was kind of an experiment here in Nebraska to try to close the achievement gap. And then I actually got on the school board and became president, and we did a lot of reforms as far as how we changed how we were trying to educate kids. We did our first needs analysis ever done, where we had an outside group come in and study. And then since then, education just always been, I think, something important to me.
Yeah. And so on the floor, you really gave, I mean, just powerful opening speech. And we started this Black Minds Matter. I started this last summer when the murder of George Floyd happened, and linking the two systems, the criminal justice system and the education system, and how they're both fundamentally not created to support Black and brown people in this country. You talked on a little bit about that on the floor. Can you just tell me a little bit about because you've been, just mulling around with this issue, right, for quite some time. And
right.
What changed your heart?
Well, so when I was on the school board, there were a couple charter school bills introduced, and a couple of them we were against, a couple of them we were more neutral. And the idea is, well, maybe we should become a charter district so we could be relieved of some of the constraints that we have. And so that was always the starting point. But then I just kind of, I felt like we should just change the whole education system. We should change the whole education system. And the more and more I sat around, it actually was because of COVID that OPS, where my daughter went to school, decided to shut their doors, and then in the fall decided not to open. And so we looked for an alternative because my daughter just sitting at home online wasn't going to work for her. And so we ended up putting my daughter into a private school. And it was in that conversation where I talked to so many parents, because they were like, what are you going to do? And I'm transparent about it. I'm like, I'm putting my daughter in private school because I want her to go to class. And so then that's when I started hearing from a lot of parents, I want that option. And many of them signed up. And when they got the amount, they were like, I can't afford it. And I just felt like, well, if I'm going to be true about education being a fundamental right, and if I truly believe it's the passport to the future, then I don't care if it's private or public. These parents should be able to have that option. And the fact of the matter is we don't have a lot of option in Omaha. And that's what kind of weighed on me, is that we had extra money. The federal government has given our schools plenty of dollars in COVID money. So if this was the year to experiment, if this was the year that the demand was there, then why not take a $5 million chance? Mind you, last year we spent 150 million in tax credits on corporations. So if we can put corporations over kids, I got a problem with that. So if we can give corporations dollars, and nobody raised the argument of we're defunding education when it came to giving corporations all that money, but $5 million somehow is going to break the education system. The logic just wasn't there for me.
Mm-hmm. And that's your quote that you kept saying. Drop that quote. You kept saying it over and over again on the floor.
Profits over people. That one, or
I'm like, we need that on the t-shirt song.
Profit over people, or is it the other one? The only people who are denying choice are the people who have already accessed choice.
But that one,
their choice. You know.
I mean, and even the just how you came about, like, okay, I need to think differently about this issue. Your personal experience, your daughter during COVID, like that's how a lot of people are feeling. Like if more people actually took the time to say, those who are your colleagues and in the legislature, most of I was listening, like, you literally just told us that you went to a private school, you send your kids to private school, your parents. I'm like, wait, what's going on here? Like, you have the ability, and God bless you, you got the ability to make those decisions, and you got the funds to make those decisions. But there are some people who don't. And just like hearing like, hey, I realize that some people don't have they don't have the funds. They want it, but they just don't have the funds. I've always been quite interested in why it seems like all other welfare programs, like food stamps, housing, what else? Disability, are pretty much supported by Democrats, but it seems like education, not so much. Why is that? Or do you have?
It goes back to those two institutions, police and education, being linked to the ones who have systematically kept African Americans down. And that's because both of those institutions are historically linked to control. And if you can control their mind and you can actually control their physical movement, you truly control that person completely. And that's history. That's just what it was. And that goes all the way back to slavery, how we want to make sure the education was just enough that they could work or feel, but we don't want to educate Negroes to be able to talk back against us. So that's those two institutions historically. The other part of it is, what changed for me is when I was on a school board trying to see how hard it was to move the dial and change the culture. And by doing that, and that's why I said to everybody, I'll vote to kill this bill if you send your kids to the schools in my neighborhood that we are waiting to change, and we all go through it together. If we want to do that your kid's gonna go through the same thing that goes into my neighborhoods, then we can all change together.
Yeah. And did anybody raise their hand and say they were going to do it? We only had
like, yeah, one person said, I'll take that challenge, but I know they're not going to fill out the transfer forms. I mean, it's easy to talk about it, but there's still left time in the school year while we in session. Let's have your kids show up to, on Monday to the school. Like, let's make it happen. But that's not the reality, right? And so we know, in order to change a school, let's look at priority schools, top priority schools, or lowest performing schools. It takes 2 or 3 years. Why should that kid be denied that right for 2 or 3 years? That's the part that they don't have an answer for.
That's right. And it's, for me, I went to a private school on a scholarship. I'm from Florida. And so we have a program, and I went to one of those schools where nobody wanted to send their kids to. And I failed the 3rd grade twice. And so that's why this issue is personal to me, because I saw directly how going from one environment to another environment was so different, completely different. Just even how teachers interacted with me. Teachers would sigh because my family has a reputation, I'll just put it like that, in the community. And so I walk through the door, they see Meriwether, and they're like, we got to deal with another one. Here's another one. And that's something that I had to deal with over and over again. My mom didn't graduate from high school. Uncle didn't graduate from high school. Brothers didn't graduate from high school. I have come from a long family of high school dropouts. And when I had the opportunity to go to a different school, it changed everything. I have a master's degree now, and all of this wouldn't have been possible if it hadn't been for education freedom. And so when I hear the floor debate and I hear about and come to Nebraska and I see the kids who are struggling in school and they want to learn, they have that, little spark of desire, but there's just nothing to kind of grasp it and, let their dreams be made into reality. Like, I want to learn, and so it really, it pains my heart that the bill didn't pass, because I know the kids like who are in my neighborhood. And then I think about the kids who are in North Omaha who could have benefited from a different option. When you look back, and I don't know if you actually saw it, but, I bet you've heard it since Wednesday. You were completely powerful. And I'm so glad that the mic kept being given over to you, because it was just like sauce. From reaction, what was your thoughts? You got up and just, from a skeptic, and I know you've heard, people, been on the fence. And I think that's a fair description, just on the fence, not really knowing, and just being on the floor and such a proponent, that's pretty remarkable. So thank you. And so, looking back, even with your colleagues, were they shocked?
Some of them were, but this was kind of a growing conversation that we're not doing enough. But for me, and for the rest of this session, we're going to have some uncomfortable conversations. And so I keep telling people we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable if we're going to really do something about race. And when you look at Medicaid, we put a lot of money in Medicaid, but we don't say you can only go to a public hospital, because we have one here in Douglas County. We don't say that you can only go to a federally qualified health center, because we got 2 of them in Douglas County. In fact, we say you can go to any hospital that accepts Medicaid, and that's usually CHI, which is a Catholic-ran organization, and we don't necessarily always agree with their beliefs, but we don't deny people the right to access healthcare. But we deny people the right to access education. That's the part we're going to start having interesting conversations. There's going to be a bill on final reading that I left alone, and it's a child care subsidy bill. And I don't have nothing against child care subsidy, but again, we don't put this public dollar requirement saying, hey, we only want it to be public. We say, no, if it's a daycare, we're going to support them. We're going to support low-income people going to daycares, and many of them. This is the not part that I don't understand. Many of them are in parochial schools. Many of them are, and we give them money. There's no stop there. So it's like, okay, birth to 6-year-olds, or actually 12-year-olds for daycare, we allow them to go to these private child care facilities. Many of them all day. Many of them we would deem preschools, and then in college we allow them to take scholarship and public dollars and go to these private schools. But somehow K through 12, we just say, no, we know what's best in the public world. It just doesn't make sense. So people who are considered allies have introduced those bills, and they're going to have to answer those questions. If we're talking about fundamental rights, ones that we advocate for, why is this one different?
That's right. It's so right. It's like, you say, oh, we shouldn't be discriminated against when we're in the workplace. Oh, we should be able to read. We should be able to know about money. And we give public dollars to nonprofits, that could have any different to implement these programs, that we are saying that we support. to benefit our communities, but not for education, not for that K through 12 gap. And it is really hypocritical. And I say it all the time for those people who are saying that, you know, our bodies deserve life, but then our minds can just be destroyed. That's really hypocritical. The dollars and everything matters. Our lives matter, our minds matter. And so we need to really just stop with laying in bed, I like to say, with the teachers union, and stop, you know, saying that we're so scared of them, because the Supreme Court and everyone is behind this issue. The public is behind this issue. There was a survey this year from Real Clear talking about the support of school choice. 71% of voters support school choice. They want to send their kids to other schools. And 66% of those are Black people who say, I want to pick the school for my kid. It just makes, it's no logical reason why people would not support the issue. It's all protecting adults, and it's not protecting the kids. And is there, you know, when you think about the bill, what's your hope moving forward, or you know, what's your hope moving forward?
Well, I would like to figure out how to bring it back and put it on a different bill. But I do think we just got to keep fighting the fight. At the end of the day, we have to make sure that no matter where a kid is, right, you know, every kid should have access to a high quality education, and that right can't be dependent upon chance. It can't be dependent upon somebody's hope, and it can't be dependent on somebody's privilege. It should just be there.
Yeah. And Black Minds Matter, because I know a lot of the debate was about Catholic schools, and that these schools have their own beliefs, you know, and they're in their own systems, their own way of doing things. Under Black Minds Matter, I have a directory, the first ever online directory of Black owned and founded schools. And so do you think that, well, I'm not going to ask that leading question, but it's my belief that when programs pass, such as the one that was proposed in Nebraska, that more education, entrepreneurship, that's how I like to phrase it, more diverse school options will come into play. And I was really, because I have the director, and I've been searching for Black-owned schools in Nebraska, and I ain't been able to find one, but I'm just hoping that, you know, once something passes, those dollars would be able to encourage more innovation in the education space. And maybe I can add a Black-owned school to the directory from Nebraska if something like that is implemented in the future. Yeah. Anything else you want to leave with the people?
No, I don't disagree with that. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And I would love to see that myself. I think what people, so one thing I learned early on, I used to run a nonprofit volunteer basis with about 1,000 kids. And one thing I learned a long time ago is programs don't change people. People change people. Mm-hmm. So you got to have people that look like them, people who know where they're coming from, people who can relate to them and meet these kids where they are. And I don't care what the kid is, you have to meet that kid where they are. And so people just have to remember that if education is a right, we got to meet people where they are. And sometimes public schools, the public school in the neighborhood isn't fulfilling their needs, and we got to decide: do we want to pay for it on the front end or pay for it on the back end?
That's
and I believe in paying it for on the front end. So giving people a choice to figure out what's best for their family and best for their kid is something we ought to do for everybody. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on. Anything else you want to leave with the people? You've gone viral in such a short amount of time. How you feel about your newfound fame?
You know, I'm a person who just wants to lay in the cut and chill and not have to worry about anything. And now all these Twitter people been hitting me up, and I'm like, man, I'm good. I just want to make a little bit of change. That's all.
Yeah, and I didn't even talk to you about your day job. So you have 2 day jobs. You're a lawyer by trade, and then you also serve in the legislature. And so you wear a lot of roles, and you're advocating in many different spaces for people. And so that's pretty admirable.
Well, the lawyer part has showed me that if we don't educate kids, I get to see them on the criminal side. And that's why idea of waiting just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. I'm, just out of curiosity, if you could gauge maybe the people that you see on the lawyer front, their level of reading or whatever, how would you, rate that?
Oh, it's no secret in Nebraska, 75% of the people in prison have less than a high school reading level. Many of them are at elementary reading level. So I think Senator McDonald was quoting like 80% are at a grade school reading level in Douglas County Corrections. So there's two things our corrections are showing us is that poor education and mental health is where we try to send people just to prison when they have either one of those issues. And one of them, actually both of them we can solve. But on one of them, we say, whether it's public or private, we're going to let you try to solve it on the Medicaid side. But again, on education, right, they want to deny that. And I don't understand that.
That's right.
And so what I would tell people is don't be an ally when it's comfortable. Be an ally when it's not comfortable.
That's good. Well, thank you, Senator Justin.
That's what yesterday showed me was many of the allies. Oh, go ahead. You have a great day.
Oh, sorry. We're like in a delay. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. You fine. That's all right.
Wait, no, you said be an ally when it's uncomfortable instead of when it's comfortable. Is that?
Absolutely correct.
I know. Sorry, we having a delay. So there's like
everybody just got on the internet.
So yes, thank you so much for joining this episode of Black Minds Matter, and for standing up for kids instead of institutions, because they are the ones that we need to stand up for. They're the ones that don't have a voice. They don't get to vote. And so we need adults, people in power, to support them and not support institutions. Yes, we want to make sure we have jobs and make sure people have jobs who work in institutions, but that's not what it's about. It's making sure that when they graduate, they have a quality education. So I thank you so much for joining, and much success to you. I'm like a resident Nebraskan. So hopefully the next time I'm there, hopefully it does not snow. It seems like y'all, it's always snowing. And so get to meet you in person. And I just appreciate your advocacy and support on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you.